Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's only on the show because I promised I'd buy warplanes from him. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
I mean, you don't say it publicly. That kind of gets away from the secrecy of it all.
Do you get my topical reference?
I do.
Yeah.
So in that situation, what, I am Sarkozy or you are Sarkozy?
I don't know. I guess I'm Qatar.
Yeah.
And I'm going to promise to buy warplanes
So I guess I'm just France. I'm the nation of France.
You're
Got it.
France
Cool.
if you vote. Yeah. So if you don't know, Michel Platini was arrested today.
Was he? Because this is the thing.
Oh, detained. He was detained.
He was detained for questioning as a witness, I believe.
Is that a rich people thing? Instead of getting arrested, you get detained for questioning?
I don't know, but I saw multiple people pointing out that it seemed to be a translation error, that the word that people were translating as arrested was more so detained, because it could be detained for questioning as like a witness. It could be detained for questioning because he is the suspect or what have you, whatever the terminology would be. So I say that just to say...
He's my suspect.
Don't get your hopes up. And is also the suspect of my heart, yes.
And just to clarify what we're saying, the rumour, I guess it's a rumour, right, is that when the World Cup bidding was happening to who would host the 2022 World Cup, Platini was leaning US, but Sarkozy took him aside and kind of said... Well, if you vote for Qatar, then they've promised they might buy military equipment from us, and that would be good for the French economy, right? So that might be that might be one of the ways Qatar got the 2022 World Cup.
One of the many.
You notice I said might be because I don't want any legal trouble.
Allegedly, yes, yes. So commiserations to Michel Platini. I hope he's not having a miserable time and isn't being, kept away from friends and family in the light of day.
Yeah, and you hope that because he didn't sell us all out.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Thousands of people haven't died because of the bribery and collusion and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Okay, but it wasn't all corruption news today.
Allegedly.
There was some actual soccer.
There was.
There was some actual soccer. It wasn't even alleged.
It wasn't even.
It was real soccer. So we have two Women's World Cup games to talk about. It was the Group C finale, Italy v Brazil and Australia v Jamaica. There were goals in both. Most of them scored by Sam Kerr.
Yes.
Statistically, she scored most of the goals today.
Yes, I believe 80%.
And then later, we're going to be catching up on the Copa America. The first match day has happened, right? Everybody's played a group stage game, and we have a guest, Felipe Cardenas, who knows a lot more than we do about those games. He's very invested in the Copa America. And Taylor has an interview with Felipe in part 2 of today's show. I've been told by a trusted source that it's a very, very good interview.
It is.
Trusted source may have been biased, but I've been told it's a very good interview.
I would also say, I did the interview. Daryl hasn't heard it yet, so Daryl's saying he knows a lot more than we do, Felipe. I would amend that to a lot more than we do.
I've met Felipe and I suspect that's true.
The man has knowledge. The man has knowledge.
All right, shall we start with our Women's World Cup recap?
I suppose we should.
How about we start with Italy-Brazil?
All right.
Okay, so going into this in Group C, Italy were leading. They were top of the group to begin the day, but Brazil beat them 1-0.
That is true.
Thus securing third place in the group for Brazil, which maybe wasn't what they planned at the start of this.
I would say probably not, but also given their record coming into this competition, or the lack thereof in terms of not getting any sort of positive results, I think maybe the fact that they were able to advance at all, they'll probably take. They'll be okay with.
So they're in third place with 6 points, but third place with 6 points probably makes them the best third place team in this whole tournament. So they're definitely going through, right?
Yes, 100%.
Sure. Even if not mathematically, we're really confident.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident.
Okay. Should we talk about the goal they scored?
Sure.
So, it was a Marta penalty. We'll maybe talk about the statistical significance of that penalty later on. It was actually quite a good move. The way they won this penalty was a really, really good bit of soccer. Fair to say?
Yeah, 100%, because it's good, quick combinations, but then it's also kind of intense, an intense driving run from Dabinia that causes massive problems here. But it's maybe also a little bit of positional naivete from Italy as well.
Yeah, so we've been praising Italy, right? Because we're really impressed with their last game against Jamaica, I believe. We saw some weaknesses here.
Yes.
So what happens is the left back, Brazil are building possession. The ball goes out to Tamires. Monica plays it out to Tamires. Tamires looks down the line and hits Marta, right? Good low ball into Marta. And Marta's able to take one touch and lay it into the path of Dabinia to kind of run at goal or at the penalty area, essentially. The problem there is Dabinya's supposed to be marked by Guanyi.
Yeah.
And Guanyi does a really bad job of tracking Dabinia.
It doesn't.
What happened? Why does she lose her?
It is somehow the most inexplicable thing about this day, and that's including the Jamaican goalkeeper forgetting to pass the ball for the fourth goal for Australia. And all I can figure is that she gets so focused on Marta and Marta having the ball that Guanyi just sort of like gravitates towards that and completely loses track of her mark, because it's not even a sort of subtle like, oh, I'll slide over and try to help, but I still pay attention to my mark. It's not even a I'll go double team. It's just more of a like, oh, the ball's been played in there. I'll sort of do that kind of half jog, half skip towards it. Oh no, the person I'm supposed to be tracking is now wide open and driving forward with the ball.
I can see her name and a number because she's running away from me.
Yeah, never a good thing. Never a good thing.
And if you haven't seen this, to picture it, Dabinia and Guani are basically on the touchline when this move starts. Marta's slightly inside of them, right? And then Dabinia makes the interior run. And Guani stays outside.
She does.
For way, way too long.
She ends up picking up Marta in a way that I like. We joke about this sometimes about like, if I can get to a person who isn't the one who's on the ball, it won't be my fault because when
I won't be in the picture.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Or I'll be marking somebody.
Well, the person who's going to get the blame for it, I mean, the blame goes to Dabinia for a magnificent dribble. It's Linari.
I would say credit goes to Dabinia.
Credit, you're right. Yeah. Well, it depends if you're Italian.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. Yeah.
It's Linari who absolutely 100% fouls Dabinia in the box, right? I mean, the commentary team weren't sure, but Linari, I think was it Kat Whitehall said that?
I think so.
She liked that Linari stepped between the ball and Dabinia.
And then
that's not what she did, right? She stepped into Dabinia after Dabinia had started dribbling the ball. You can't do that.
I mean, she does do what was described. It's just she does it and then stops.
Yeah.
So she's no longer making a play on the ball, and she's also obstructing the run of an opponent.
Yeah, she's making a play on the player.
And also just clearly bodies her, not even off the ball, but just bodies her as the ball rolls away. I do think that it's a credit to Brazil, and it's a credit to Beatriz, the other forward for Brazil.
Because she'd come on for Cristiano, right?
Yes, and the run she makes that is basically once Dabinia starts driving, when she gets the return pass from Marta, Beatriz makes a kind of diagonal run away. So it's continuing to show in that she's like opening up in case that ball comes in, but it's also pulling away Linare, and that's why Linare then when she goes back across, I think has to kind of make a desperation tackle because suddenly the situation is quite vulnerable.
So I guess Linare's originally hoping that Gama, her centre-back partner, who was originally marking Marta, and actually stands Marta up, right? But Marta does the layoff. Gama's tracking or chasing Dabinia. I think when Linari realises that Gama's not going to get there, then she has to switch track and come back across. Right?
Because that's why it ends up being Guanyi on Marta and then Gama trying to get back to cover Dabinia.
Everything switches on, right? And if you watch this play, it's the reason that Beatrice run that you pinpointed is so important is you can see Dabinia making a sort of, it's like a diagonal run. She switches track and exploits that space that Linari's been moved out of and goes towards goal, right? Because of Beatrice, who won't get there should be some sort of weird statistical assist.
We've talked about this before.
For a great run that distracts everyone.
Or if you earn the penalty, you should get the assist as well if you don't get to take it.
Absolutely.
Which Dabinia does not.
Before we talk about the penalty, I also just want to talk about Italy's centre-back partnership. I'd mentioned before that the best way Italy defend is Linari goes high and challenges. Gama is like the sweeper-upper, right? She just, anything that comes through, she absolutely takes care of it. This time it had been reversed, right? Gama was out high with Marta, and Linari was deep, and I think that's why you're better off with Gama. I think she's a bit cleaner, and she wouldn't have done quite what Linari did.
Probably not. Maybe not. Who's to say? But it doesn't really matter because she ends up not being in a position to do so. So it is Linari. It is a penalty. We both agree.
Upsteps Marta.
Upsteps Marta, and it's exactly what we'd expect a Marta penalty to be: calm, cool, collected, bottom corner, well struck.
Didn't have a bit of disguise on it as well. She, like her hips were like, I'm definitely going to the left, but then she swivels at the last second and goes to the right.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and it is really well struck with that in mind because it does throw the keeper the wrong way, but it also is like side netting on the ground with some pace behind it. That's always going to be very difficult for a goalkeeper to get to.
Pretty good, right? As Larry David would say.
And then you get the double celebration. You get the kind of old school rocking the cradle celebration. Throwback to Bebeto and I think Romario.
From like 94?
Yeah, it's the one. Yes, I'm assuming somebody just had a baby. Or maybe one of their teammates who's not there just had a baby. Yes. And then the secondary one would be the pointing to the boot, which we didn't talk about last time.
Oh, yeah, Marta's boot,
Yeah, we kind of saw the tweets about it afterwards, but I guess she decided not, like her shoe sponsorship or her contract with, I forget whomever it was, expired. She chose not to renew it so that she could have like her own logo put on the shoe, which is I think the flag of equality. Is that correct?
Or the symbol for equality.
Symbol for equality,
I actually don't know, but I think it's a symbol.
So that's why you see her.
The equal sign, right? Would be my guess.
I think so.
Yeah.
So you see her pointing to that in the celebration as well.
Yes.
So well done to her for two good celebrations and a well-taken penalty.
And for being the all-time World Cup top scorer.
And there's that.
Men or women. She surpasses Miroslav Klose. She now has 17 World Cup goals. That's the most any player has ever scored at World Cups.
Miroslav Klose has to come out of retirement now. Otherwise, it's Marta's forever.
I mean, I wouldn't rule it out.
Nor would I. Nor would I.
All right, so it finishes...
Carly Lloyd, we'll see what she does with the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, it finishes 1-0 to Brazil. In the other game, Australia to quote Rob Stone on Fox, dropped a ham bone on Jamaica.
That they did.
Australia 4.
I'm choosing to believe that he hadn't used that term and maybe listened to the show when we mentioned ham bone.
Do you think it's possible, right?
It's possible, but unlikely, since it is just his term that he probably likes to throw around.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess anytime there's 4, maybe he hasn't had the chance before.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But probably us.
Did he say it when France beat Korea 4-0? I'm not sure he did.
I don't know.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, Australia 4, Jamaica 1, or Sam Kerr 4, Jamaica 1. Sam Kerr scored all 4 goals. She's now level with Alex Morgan as top scorer in this tournament with 5.
It's back on. The race is back on.
It's
Suddenly Alex Morgan
much
maybe less than thrilled about not playing against Chile.
It's hard to tell if Sam Kerr was thrilled about scoring her goals.
Yes.
She keeps that very serious face even after she scored.
She does. She does. Sorry, the pause there for me was realizing that Sam Kerr has scored 5 goals after playing in 3 games, and Alex Morgan has scored 5 goals after playing in 1 game.
Yep.
That's kind of absurd. Yes, she definitely did not seem to celebrate as emphatically as, say, Martha did, the double celebration. And I wonder if that was her maybe being aware that they needed to do a bit more to secure their kind of safe spot as number 2.
Because goal difference is what they needed to make sure that they finished second ahead of Brazil. Yeah, actually, Sam Kerr's non-celebration very much had the look of let's get back to work about it, which is kind of how I think of Sam Kerr, like let's get back to work.
It's also what
with
you
shark eyes.
What you need a little bit against with the shark eyes against no disrespect, but maybe I guess a little bit of unintentional disrespect against a team like Jamaica who have conceded goals who aren't going to be getting a point.
We'll get into their defending. It wasn't great.
No, but so I think that there's an element there of like if you are playing against a team, this is not shade thrown at the U.S. women's national team, I promise, but there is something to be said for like if you're trying to kind of round into peak form for the knockout round, you don't necessarily go over the top of your celebrations scoring against Jamaica in this situation.
And it's also not like, job done, we beat them. It's more like, let's keep going.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
Yeah, you want to keep like the pedal to the metal so that you don't, because that is a thing. If you start to let up, and then it can be difficult to get back into it, and then maybe also you're not at like tip top efficiency when you go into the knockout round. Whereas if you're firing on all cylinders at the end of this game, maybe you're a little bit more up for it when it comes to the elimination.
I'll say this. We know what Australia's plan is. Australia's plan is cross the ball to Sam Kerr. Cross the ball to Sam Kerr. And in this game, you saw the results of that, right? 3 of the goals are crossing the ball to Sam Kerr. The rest of their attacking moves were, let's cross the ball to Sam Kerr.
Yeah, pretty much, yes. So that is probably what they were trying to do. That was definitely the game plan, get to Sam Kerr. And with that in mind, I don't know if we need to go through like each goal in a lot of detail, because I do think some were more so Australia doing things and like pulling Jamaica out of position, and then the last 2 were more so Australia being fortunate and Jamaica kind of gifting Australia some chances.
I think that's fair. And the first 2 goals, so Sam Kerr scores 2 in the first half. The thing they have in common is her technique with the headers are perfect in both cases, right? Like absolutely perfect. She is targeting exactly where she wants to target as she meets the ball in the air. So credit to Sam Kerr. The other thing both of these first 2 goals have in common is Sam Kerr's movement, right? She really does find space between Jamaican defenders. The first goal, it's between the line of defence and midfield. The second goal, it's between the 2 centre-backs. But I would argue that a lot of that is also Jamaica's fault.
Yes. I mean, for the first one, especially Blackwood and others fail to really step forward aggressively when the ball is more or less cleared. And I think
it's sort of laid back from deep in the left wing by Devana all the way back to, I've forgotten who crossed it, Gielnik. Like, so the cross comes from deep. But in that moment is when Jamaica should have stepped out, and they kind of did it. We even paused it, and they had a line, but it was diagonal.
It was definitely diagonal. Yes, not quite what you're looking for.
It was a straight line, but it was diagonal.
Yeah, not the best offside line. And I think it also is like, it exemplifies what Sam Kerr brings and why she's so dangerous, because the deepest defender, Blackwood, is the furthest defender from Sam Kerr.
Yeah, she's a left back, right?
She moves away, Sam Kerr does, away from Blackwood towards the ball being played in. So then it makes it that much harder to defend her, because now if you're one of the center backs, you see her and you think like, oh, we've kept the line. She's trying to move away from us because this has all worked really well. But in actuality, she's getting away because she knows she's going to be onside when that ball is played in, and she is, and now she's very wide open. But you're absolutely right, though, that the direction of the header and the awareness to just kind of put it in near post, over the goalkeeper, high enough that no one's ever going to be able to get to it.
Is it essentially lobbing the keeper?
Yeah, basically.
With her head? It's so perfect.
It's really, really well done. Yeah.
Oh, and also the thing, obviously people know this about Sam Kerr, but it's worth highlighting. Both goals, just her movements. Lots of constant little movements to always be in the optimum place.
Yeah,
right?
I would agree with that. And I would say it's also the case for most of Australia in the second goal, that it's a lot of good individual pieces of movement or bits of movement,
Yeah.
like kind of finding space, finding gaps, causing problems for Jamaica.
Or is it just bad Jamaican marking? Because
Maybe both.
So Van
Things
Egmond,
can be two things, my
Van Egmond
friend.
receives the throw
Yeah.
with zero pressure on it.
Yep.
She's able to give it to Gory, who is between the lines on the right, who can literally receive the ball, turn, and cross it to Sam Kerr with zero pressure on
Yes.
her. Sam Kerr heads the ball. She is between two defenders. I think she's between the right back and the centre back, and there's a couple yards either side.
Yep.
Right, no one is marking Sam Kerr as she bangs in this second header with sort of a flick of the neck.
Yeah, if anything, no one's marking her because Swaby, the centre back, has gone to mark Lagarzo for some
It's
reason.
like a last second decision of, she's open, I'll go mark her. But you left Sam Kerr.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I really like to, I know this isn't the case, but I really like to think in that like 10th of a second was looking at Sam Kerr and being like, it's Sam Kerr, she's probably going to score this header. I'll go mark the other person who's wide open, and then it will look like I'm just trying to do something.
How wide is this camera shot? I reckon I can get out of it.
Yeah, so I mean, Swaby definitely helps, and that is, I think you're probably right, that it genuinely is probably both things here. It's Jamaica not being very sharp in possession, and then it's Australia capitalizing upon that. Because
speaking of possession, doesn't this goal start with
does.
Swaby, I think, tries to clear but just kind of spoons it up in the air, and then a centre-back partner, Plummer, rescues it, going it for a corner kick, and then clears it like straight to trouble, and it ends up with being an Australian throw.
Well, she's trying to find a pass. She's trying to find like a pass to her teammate, but basically it's a 20-yard pass.
She maybe gets close to Bunny Shaw, right? But it comes off Bunny Shaw and goes out.
Yeah, but it's Bunny Shaw having to check back with a defender on her back. So it's like even then it's sort of playing a teammate into pressure. It's probably not going to lead to good things, especially with them running at your own goal.
Yeah.
And it eventually is Jamaica coughing the ball up.
Oh, and Jamaica do pull one back at the start of the second half. We'll maybe touch on that later because I want to focus on bad Jamaican defending, unfortunately, because I don't think we're going to go into detail on this, but the third goal, obviously Sam Kerr again, is all about bad Jamaican defending.
Yeah.
This is one where Razzo just dribbles and basically she makes loads of mistakes but still gets away with it.
I mean, it's not just her. It's a ball. It's a bad ball from, I believe, Van Egmond.
Yes, crossfield ball.
There's basically 4 different mistakes from Australia, but the ball ends up going back to them, or there's not enough pressure for Jamaica to do anything about it.
Yeah.
And then it ends up with Rosso basically just driving past Plummer, and I think even then tries to drive the ball in for Sam Kerr, doesn't find Sam Kerr. Instead, it hits Campbell. Campbell isn't able to like settle the ball at all. She tries to take it with her thigh, and it just goes right back to Sam Kerr.
She thighs it straight back to Sam Kerr at the top of the 6-yard box.
Who very calmly settles it and passes it in the goal.
Yeah,
it's
and
credit to her.
It really highlights the difference, I mean, honestly, between Jamaica and Australia is the calmness of Sam Kerr. She just brings this ball down, slides it into the net. Yeah, very
and then the fourth goal, McClure, the goalkeeper, with a very bad mistake. We think maybe she's receiving a back pass from Plummer. We think maybe she was looking for Swaby and then realizes that Caitlin Ford, who subbed on for Australia, is applying light pressure. And I think there's just a moment of indecision from McClure, and in that indecision, the ball gets away. So when she tries to make a pass, she ends up kind of whiffing it.
Mostly a miss.
Yeah,
right? She
exactly.
Just get the top of it, maybe. And to Sam Kerr's credit, it's not like the ball just rolls to her and she taps it in. Sam Kerr sees a mistake and pounces
and finishes. It's not just like a poke.
Yeah.
It's like she gets through and insteps it with her left
tackle
foot.
and a shot at the same time.
It's impressive and necessary. You pointed this out because for them to overtake Brazil on goal difference, they needed this goal because, it's worth noting, Jamaica had pulled a goal back. And we should talk about that as well.
So Jamaica's goal, their first ever goal at the World Cup, they celebrated sort of magnificently.
Yeah.
Almost had me, there was a tear that threatened to come out of my eye, but it went back in.
I like it.
For whatever reason, it is scored by Havana Solan. She's American, Cuban, and Jamaican, but she chose to represent Jamaica recently, only recently caught up. The interesting thing is she'd been pretty good this tournament. She was dropped for this game. She came on at half time, and the reason she was dropped, I think, is that Bunny Shaw had been playing up top. She's obviously the star striker of Jamaica, right? And just hadn't been seeing the ball. So she's come back and played attacking midfield this game, which is Solan's spot, so Solan's dropped. Back in at half time, and then you get a Bunny Shaw, Havana Solan link up for Jamaica's first ever World Cup goal.
But the confusing thing about this is that it's still, though, sort of, if you look at the way this kind of goal comes about, it is Bunny Shaw almost operating to number 10.
Yeah, I think she'd seen the opportunity to come challenge deeper for a ball. It's Van Egmond, actually, who maybe didn't have her best day today.
Maybe
She's
not.
Normally very impressive. Van Egmond, it's not even a 50-50. I think she has control.
She does.
Bunny Shaw does what Kate Whitehall maybe thought Lanari was doing.
Yeah.
She steps between Van Egmond and the ball because Bunny Shaw's big, right? without fouling Van Egmond.
I mean, I think it's more hip to hip as well, which is a big difference between that and the initial penalty the only penalty,
leg to leg. That
So it's one of those where you can see Australia, like a couple players half call for a foul, but no one really is like that's an obvious foul because Bunny Shaw just gets good position and uses her physicality to be able to knock Van Egmond off the ball.
One player is stronger than the other and knew how to use her strength to insert herself in a way that wins the ball.
Yeah, but we also talk about everything else Bunny Shaw has and why she's such a highly touted player and very exciting player to watch. And this is it, because not only does she drop back and do the defensive work and, again, use her strength to knock Van Egmond off the ball, but then it's the ability to drive at Australia in a way that maybe other Jamaican players were not as inclined to do, and then still find a way to play a good ball in for Solon. I think it showcases Bunny Shaw's all-around kind of comprehensive abilities.
And this pass is pretty perfect, right? It's like between either two centre-backs or between the centre-back and the right-back, and it is weighted in such a way that it's perfect for Havana Solon to receive.
And it also kind of baits Lydia Williams, I think it is, into coming off of her line. So even then, it's like that much well hit as well that it pulls the goalkeeper out, but also isn't close enough that the goalkeeper can easily take it.
Yeah, okay. And so Solon, takes one touch around the keeper, then left-footed, puts it sort of into inside the far post in a way that throws off the Australian defenders. You and I disagree on whether this is deliberate or not, right?
Yes.
I think she was going for this. You think maybe she mishits it.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay. Just worth noting that we have
I mean, I think when she hits it, for it to go the way it does, which is like between the two defenders, one of whom overruns it and one of whom can't get to it, that is not a gap that is there when she strikes this ball. So, I'm inclined to say she maybe hits it further back of her instep than she expected to, so it just kind of doesn't have quite the trajectory that maybe was intentional.
I'll tell you what, when they write the history of the Jamaican women's national team, it won't matter. Because Havana Solon will have scored the first ever World Cup goal for Jamaica, and they all count.
They certainly do.
Beautiful. Okay, so 4-1 to Australia. And just so everyone knows, they finished level on Brazil with goal difference, but more goals scored. That's why Australia are in second place. Italy, despite losing today, top of the group because of their superior goal difference.
Not a thing a lot of people saw coming, I think.
Not at all. All right, so tomorrow we wrap up Group D. It's England-Japan. It's Argentina-Scotland. What else we got tomorrow? Is it just the one game? Just the two games? Yeah, just Group D tomorrow. I'm talking to myself. Japan, England, and Scotland, Argentina. We'll have reviews of those games, of England's glorious victory over Japan on tomorrow's
Sounds good.
show. Before you talk to Felipe Cardenas, today's show is sponsored by FBref.com, the football reference people.
That's right. The Football Reference people, FBref, has all the stats for many different competitions, very much including the Women's World Cup. So you can go there, you can get stats on the individual teams, on the individual players, on who's doing the best in the tournament right now in terms of points and goals scored and all that good stuff. I have some individual numbers for you from the group that we've just discussed if you want
it. Yeah,
in terms of kind of top performers in relation to minutes. Gielnik, who we've talked about.
Australian winger,
2 assists in 131 minutes, so she's averaging 1 assist every 66 minutes.
Not bad.
Not to be outdone. Marta, goal and assist every 65 minutes, so she gets a goal and an assist.
Her minutes have been limited.
Only 129.
Yeah.
The one that I think is probably not going to continue, but is interesting to me, is that Italy either do not score in their games or have a player who gets multiple goals. Because in their first game, Bonansea gets a brace.
Yep.
Then in the second game, I think it was Girelli gets a hat trick.
Yeah.
And Gali gets a brace. And then today, they failed to score. So Italy either score multiple or don't score.
So today, everyone gets nothing.
Exactly.
I've got a stat for you, but it's kind of a quiz, and it's almost a trick question. Which player is leading in terms of goals per minute?
Oh, it's probably...
goals per 90 minutes. It's the same stat, basically. Either way, which player is leading in terms of goals per minute?
Okay. Is that the same thing? Or did they have to have played 90 minutes?
Well, they're two different numbers, but they ultimately lead to the same person because it's both going to be the biggest number.
I mean, I'm assuming it's... I'm just going to go with it's either Gali or it's Alex Morgan. It's definitely Alex Morgan.
Because she scored 5 in 90?
Yes.
You would think so, right? But it turns out to be Larnett Cleland because when she scored against... who did Cleland score against for Scotland? I can't remember.
Against Japan.
Was it against Japan? She only been on the field 14 minutes.
Yes.
So she's averaging
the confusing thing.
1 goal every 14 minutes, or in terms of per 90, 6.43 goals per 90 minutes.
Yes.
So maybe Scotland should start her. and they'd win every game 6-something.
I'm sure that's how
stats work.
Yes, totally. And doesn't at all betray the confusing and oftentimes difficult nature of statistics.
I've got a more pure stat for you then. Assist leaders. We have a tie for assist leaders in this tournament. You're welcome to guess, or I'll just tell you. I don't want to put you on the spot
you can tell
if you don't
it's
want
fine.
to be. It's a tie between Alex Morgan. She got 3 assists in that game. She scored 5 goals. And Manuela Giuliano, the Italian midfielder who put in those beautiful crosses in the second group stage game. She also has 3 assists. So we have a tie at the top for assists, 3 each for Giuliano and Alex Morgan.
That'll do it. Well
right.
done to both of them. Well done to FBref for having all of that information.
Yep.
One more time, that's FBREF.com.
Yep, and you can also subscribe to their newsletter, StatHead. The link is at FBref.com, and every day you get World Cup stats delivered to your inbox.
All right, there we are. So thank you to FBref for sponsoring today's episode of the Total Soccer Show. And now we'll turn it over to me talking to Felipe Cardenas about the Copa America thus far. When we recorded this Tuesday afternoon, it was, I think, after every team had played one game, had not yet kicked off with the kind of second game for a couple of the teams.
So it's a match day 1 review.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There it is.
Let's do it. Here's Taylor and Felipe Cardenas.
With me now, I've got our friend and yours, Mr. Felipe Cardenas of The Athletic. Felipe, thank you very much for taking time away from, it sounds like your vacation, to talk to me about the Copa America.
Yeah, I'm in Puerto Rico. I'm in San Juan, but we're leaving today, so my vacation's over. So now it's all good. This is the best time to catch me.
All right, that's good to know. I appreciate that. I hope your family agrees. And so you've got Copa America, and then you're also going to be covering El Tri, correct?
Right. So I'm heading back to Atlanta, and then I'll be in Denver on Wednesday night for Mexico's game against Canada, which is probably the biggest group match, one of the bigger group matches of the first phase of the Gold Cup, definitely in Group A. And so I'll be covering Mexico throughout Gold Cup for the Athletic Soccer.
But until then, you've been, I'm assuming, paying particular attention to the Copa America so far. So that's what we wanted to talk to you about. We've been a little preoccupied with the Women's World Cup, the start of the Gold Cup. We have not yet turned our attention to the Copa America, but I know you have. So I was hoping to pick your brain if that works for you.
Yeah, let's do it. Of course. I mean, Copa America for me, it's funny that you say like I was on vacation. I could not unplug completely because of Copa America. I was watching it, very interested. It's the one tournament that's always been part of my life as a soccer fan. So yeah.
And
happy to talk about it.
I'm guessing I know the answer to this, but I'm wondering what's been your favorite game so far?
I mean, come on. Like I didn't sleep the night before Colombia, Argentina. I was panicking because even though I felt really good about Colombia, and just kind of catching Argentina in this kind of new phase that they're in, you're still having to face Leo Messi, and that will keep you up at night. And again, Colombia hadn't beaten Argentina since 2007. There had been several close games in World Cup qualifiers and then Copa America where Colombia was really close, and it just took like a moment of magic from Messi to kind of kill off a game. And so that's always possible when you play against Argentina and the alien that we know as the number 10, So it was a great game as a fan for me for Colombia, but like I said before, and I'm sure we'll get into it, there were a lot of tactics going on in that match.
Yeah, that's what I kind of wanted to ask you, like if it's possible, because you're an actual journalist compared to me and Daryl, who sit in an office and talk about stuff. It's like if you put your take off your fandom cap for a minute, put on like the journalism cap. I'm wondering how you would sort of explain what happened in that game, Argentina getting the 2-0 win. And so I kind of want to hear the objective version, and then I also want to hear after that the Phantom hat back on why you think Colombia pulled off that win.
Yeah, like I said before, I felt like it would be really tactical especially in the first half, the first 20, 15, because I felt like under Carlos Queiroz, the new manager for Colombia, who a lot of people remember him for just failing at Real Madrid, but recent history has been he's done very well with Iran, in Asia, and they've shown well in World Cups. And the last World Cup they didn't advance, but they played every team in that group of death really tough. They almost. They were very close, head to head against Spain, against Portugal. And what I liked about that when I went back and looked at some of those games is that his teams were just really brave, very vertical, but everyone defended. And it sounds so elementary in soccer in general, especially in modern day soccer and modern tactics. But the attackers are all dual performing players. and everyone has a role. And so I felt good about Colombia, thinking, hey, they can probably come at Argentina. They have taste, they have verticality, and they have a cradle of players and a generation of players that are all, bred in Europe. And what Queiroz was going to do and what he's done is it's an evolution of what Jose Pekerman did with Colombia from 2014 to 2018. And he kind of is putting a stamp on it by making the team a little bit more aggressive. And so it's mental as well. And knowing that you're facing Argentina, the team that you haven't beaten since '07, but thinking that, you can be the protagonist. So I think that's what he did. It was very much a tactical battle in midfield, where I think Queiroz felt if we can obviously limit any type of service to Argentina's front three, which was Aguero, Di Maria, and Messi, which will scare any defense, any coach.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, right. So, I think it sounds really simple, but just like if you limit any type of service to them, you're going to have, you're going to do pretty well. And so that's what you saw. He had an extra midfielder, which in this case was Juan Cuadrado, which he's a winger. He's always been kind of an up and down flank player, and now he had him kind of in this dual role, which I don't want to say it's the same thing that like Berhalter wants Tyler Adams to do, but it's kind of like an advancement of that position. So instead of the right fullback drifting to the middle, you have a right midfielder who can play on the wing but can pinch in and drift in and provide support in the midfield. And so that's what Cuadrado was doing, and it always was as if they had an extra man in the middle to kind of harass Argentina's two central midfielders in Paredes and Guido Rodriguez, who were supposed to kind of build play from the back, and they just weren't able to in the first half. And so what you saw was you had Nicolas Otamendi, who's a Man City Pep, defender, that Queiroz said it was as if he told his players, anytime Otamendi has the ball, either press him or let him play out of the back. And so you saw this kind of like half counter press from Colombia, where none of their midfielders could get on the ball. And the only ball that was available for Otamendi was kind of to lump it up the field, which would just kind of, Mina and Davinson Sanchez would just eat that up, or, Otamendi was just kind of pumping it out of bounds. So in the first half, you could see what was going on. It was a midfield, kind of a diamond for Colombia that just kind of harassed and pressed and recovered. And when they had the opportunity, they would counter. And so that was the first 45 minutes of play. And I think that continued throughout the match, even though Argentina really they changed their tactics at halftime. And you could see that Scaloni told his players, okay, we're giving them too much time on the ball. You could see Mina and Davinson in Argentina's half building play. And so they changed up and pressed a little bit. And in the second half, Argentina really took over the game. And then in the 70th minute, the first goal from Colombia came, and it just demoralized them. And Messi said after the game that, their first goal came when we were playing our best football. So it was one of those things where Colombia stuck to their plan regardless, even when they lost possession and kind of lost control of the game. They just focused on shutting down the middle, shutting down Messi, and playing wide. Something that's very different are these diagonal balls that you've seen them on Twitter. You saw James's amazing ball to find Roger Martinez, but those balls were on all day. And so something that I read today, and I'll end with this, is that I was reading an article about Carlos Queiroz, that this guy has a master's in football methodology.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's a fascinating interview that he gave with El País in Spain last year, where he talks about the three core elements of his teaching of soccer, and it all begins in practice, but it's basically spacing, timing, and numerical advantages. And so it was fascinating to watch that, because that's exactly what Colombia did to Argentina. They reduced space, or they played with space, and they opened up the field, and it always seemed like they had an extra man either in the middle or just alone on a flank. And so, it sounds really elementary, but at the same time, it's kind of like this. He's an intellectual type of coach, and I think he knows that he has a core of players that are European based and are kind of schooled in the European way of training, and I think he'll maximize this core players of Colombia right now.
Well, first off, given the way that the United States has looked while trying to kind of implement a semi-similar system, it does not sound elementary to me at all, because it seems fairly complicated if you take the U.S. men's national team into the equation. But I did want to ask you, so that's like a fascinating tactical breakdown. I have not seen the game in full. I've seen highlights and I've seen clips, and it feels like sort of the narrative has been Colombia found a way to get 2 goals in the second half. First half, they did a lot of like physical fouling, some kicking, things like that. So is that the case? Like, do you think that's part of the kind of limiting any type of service that you get overly physical, or is that just because it's Lionel Messi and he tends to draw fouls?
Well, yeah, I think in the first half, the aggressors, and again, this is not me being biased at all. I think Argentina, they were the first ones that really started to impose themselves physically, and that's to me that's standard Argentina, or really any type of South American team in the first opening minutes. Like you watch Uruguay, they'll outmuscle anyone, to just kind of stabilize their tactics and kind of impose themselves on an opponent. In the first half, I thought, there were some questionable fouls from Paredes, several tackles from Rodriguez, and Colombia in the end. Listen, I felt like the ref kind of let that go, and it was a matter of time before someone kind of went overboard. And so the one thing that's crucial to this is that the one player that was tasked with marking Lionel Messi, which was Wilmar Barrios, who plays for Zenit in Russia, he didn't foul him once in the entire game. And so he was still around him. He out-physicaled him. He kind of harassed him a little bit when Messi did make a run and it looked like he was going to score Worley. He megged Davinson Sanchez, got into the box and was about to shoot. And the guy that was there to clean it up was Barrios. But there were other players that took their shots at Messi. And Messi said after the game, when they asked him about just kind of having Barrios like in his pocket all day and other defenders and midfielders kind of kicking out his ankles and things like that, he was like, that's how it is in South America. He was clear. He didn't criticize anyone. He's like, this is how it is when I come back and play in South America. And he kind of quickly turned the page to, they need to, look forward to the next opponent. So I felt like both teams tested each other physically, tested the referee as well. And, when Cuadrado took out Messi, Queiroz quickly took him out of the game. It was like automatic. He was not going to let that linger, because it was a matter of time before someone went after Cuadrado or Cuadrado kind of lost his head and you get a numerical advantage. So it was a physical match. But if you go back to the tactics and you look at Argentina, they have a lot of work to do. When there are a lot of journalists right now in Argentina breaking down what happened, and you look at it and you look at a team, that's what the difference between the two clubs. You look at one country like Colombia, who's in the evolution of a project and a process that began 8 years ago, and then you have Argentina that has taken an interim coach to a Copa America, 7 players that were on the field that had never played in a Copa America, and if you just search on Twitter, and there are a lot of breakdowns of the back four being completely out of no cohesion in the back four, players pressing when they shouldn't. 2 defensive midfielders, instead of, kind of being one in front of the other when they're building from the back to get options, they're kind of sitting in the same line. And it was just really simple for Colombia to press them. And so they tactically have a lot of work to do. And I guess you can say that that's expected when you have a new coach and new players and you're quote unquote rebuilding. But I thought Colombia really took advantage of that. They found the weaknesses and they attacked them.
So I think you've sort of already answered this, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. Right now, Colombia top of the Group B, 3 points. Argentina bottom, no points. Paraguay, Qatar, each with 1 point. They drew their first game. I want to talk about that game in a second, but I did want to ask you, given what Colombia did to find success against Argentina, do you think that's something that maybe Paraguay and Qatar could replicate? As in, do you think Argentina are in trouble getting out of this group? I mean, some third-place teams are going through, so maybe not that much trouble. But do you think this is the case that Argentina may have to really rethink some things in preparation for their final 2 group stage games? Or is it more so Colombia have that next-level talent that can cause problems for Argentina, and it should be business as usual in their final 2 group stage games for Argentina?
So quickly about Colombia, because when I spent a lot of time watching Argentine television after the match to hear what they were saying. And it was hard for them. They had to kind of swallow their pride and say, right now, Colombia is better than us. They have better players. They have better individual players at every single position. They have everyone is essentially starting or playing on a big European club, which is, let me tell you, honestly, has never happened before, ever. Anytime when Colombia has competed with Argentina, it's been, one or two players that were able to kind of level the playing field, or just a bad night for Argentina. And so in Argentina, that's what they're saying. They're being blunt. They're like, let's be honest, they're better than us right now. But I think Argentina, it's funny because I feel like if they were playing Qatar next, I would be concerned for them, because it's like that trap match. It's like they have to win, and they're playing against a team that they don't know very well. And so that their next game is against Paraguay, which I think will suit them. I think Argentina is expected to make some changes and be a lot more aggressive. I think Di Maria will come off the field. He did nothing. He was shut down by a right fullback for Colombia that hasn't been on the national team for over a year. And he's playing in Liga MX with Monterrey, Stefan Medina, and he just completely took Di Maria out of the game. And then a player, DePaul, I think his first name is Gustavo DePaul, he came on and he looked pretty dangerous on that left side. He's a right-footed player, but he was pretty dangerous. So he's expected to start. I think they'll be much more aggressive. They're not going to come out and do what they did against Colombia, which they really sat and watched, kind of like they gave the game away like really quickly. And I think they're playing a Paraguay team with a new coach, an Argentine in Berizzo. Paraguay for years has been kind of one of those teams that also can out-physical anybody, will play long and just kind of lump it forward and chase. And now, with Miguel Almirón there, and a couple of other technical and creative players, they're a team that they want to keep the ball. They want to, be creative, be attack oriented, but they're still kind of struggling to find their identity. So I think it's ripe for Argentina to impose themselves and win that game and set themselves up for the third match against Qatar, which they'll have confidence and they should be able to beat. But ask me about Qatar, because I have plenty to say about them. They're not just a walkover team.
I will ask you about them, but first I wanted to mention Paraguay briefly. You mentioned Paraguay. You mentioned Miguel Almirón. They drew 2-2 with Qatar. I don't really know what to make of that, but I do believe that Paraguay never dropped points when Miguel Almirón was playing for Atlanta United. So I'm wondering how much you blame the English Premier League for this kind of failure to get all 3 points from Paraguay.
Yeah, I mean, he looked really good. He looked like a player that obviously belongs in the Premier League, and when he comes back to play for his country, he's one of those marquee players. He's not the captain. He doesn't have to. Miguel Almirón isn't a player that has to wear the armband to feel like he's the leader of the team. He looked like a guy that's just like he was exuberant when they would score. He's just like a kid out there playing, and he looked really good. I felt like he was kind of that like more of a 10, the same like atypical 10 that Tata Martino referred to when he was asked about him. In fact, it was a question for me when I asked what kind of number 10 is Miguel Almirón for Atlanta United, and Tata Martino said he's an atypical 10 because he can create, he can build play, he can score, but he can also defend. And so there were a couple of instances where he made like lung busting runs from Qatar's box all the way to his own box to shut down a counterattack. It was just fascinating to watch. So he's still the same Miguel Almirón. That match was crazy, because they took a 2-0 lead, right. Paraguay. But the first 2-0 lead, they had 2-0 leads at one point in that game. And the first one was ruled out with VAR, which I have yet to find a good angle that convinces me that the VAR should have ruled out that goal. So I think in the end, when a lot of people were asking, why are the Paraguayan players so upset at the end of when the final whistle was blown, I think they were still complaining about that call, which would have put them up 2-0 really early too. Would have controlled that game. But in the end, they still took a 2-0 lead and they blew it. Qatar came back and tied that game and left with a point. And so I think Qatar is really an interesting story. The traditionalist in me is like, why is Qatar in the Copa America? You can complain. I've complained internally. Like, I'd rather see Mexico and the U.S. in Copa America, but here we are talking about the Asian champions playing in Copa America. So it's nothing to really to shake your head about. Like, this is a good team. And I think what's interesting is that their manager is a Spanish manager who came from Barcelona's La Masia. He's a youth development guru who's kind of schooled in that same type of intellectual type of soccer, education and terminology that Queiroz comes from. And he's taking these players that, if you look at them, they don't look exceptional. They have a couple good players that look good on the ball. Their number 10 is good, but overall no disrespect, but they're pretty average internationals, but they are so smart and they're always well positioned. And you can tell there's like a philosophy in place of keeping the ball, numerical advantages, and attacking, brave attacking. And so this is a team that, even though when they were down 2-0, they never looked like they were out of it, which is completely different from when I watched Uruguay and Ecuador. As soon as the second goal went in for Uruguay, Ecuador was just, shoulders down, heads down, and they were done. And Qatar never looked like that. They just kept attacking like it was still 0-0. And so they're a team that I think can play with anybody. I don't think they're going to beat a lot of teams necessarily. They might lose all 3 games, but I think they'll put a lot of teams under pressure. And you'll see this team later, like as we get close to whether or not this next World Cup is in Qatar. I think we're going to find out soon. But that's going to be a team that is going to continue to evolve. They've spent the money in coaching and they look good. They look like a team that knows how to play.
That's really, really interesting, because I feel like the tendency when you're a new or like smaller nation to a tournament is to go defensive, to go physical, and try to outwork your opponent. So to hear that Qatar are sort of embracing more of like a possession attacking philosophy is pretty fascinating, and I do hope they go with it, even if that means they lose all 3. I'd like to see them try to go at some opponents. Obviously, yeah. I guess the goal being to get some experience for that potential hosting of the 2022 World Cup. We shall see. But I wanted to talk about some other teams aside from all the ones in Group B, I believe it was. Let's talk Uruguay for a second, because thus far it does feel like, aside from that Colombia result against Argentina, it's been a little bit business as usual. Brazil, Uruguay, Chile, all kind of running out to comfortable leads. So let's start with Uruguay's win over Ecuador, 4-0 there. I was excited to see Nico Lodero doing things, making some plays. What did you make of Uruguay against Ecuador?
They looked like the tournament favorite. I mean, if they were hosting, they would be hands down the tournament favorite. But because the host country is Brazil, I think people will continue to kind of propel them and put them at the top of the favorites list. But Uruguay, even before the Cup, I was having conversations here in Atlanta with people, and I'm like, that's the team that I just would not want to face, because Copa America for years it's not always this like flashy, technical and creative tournament. Sometimes it's one with like pure physicality, and the games are ugly, and whoever just kind of out muscles and out kicks can advance, and moments of brilliance, like tight games where you just need like your number 9 to come through. That's Uruguay. They have it. They have exceptional players all over the field. They have a manager that has been their manager for decades and understands how the culture and the philosophy of Uruguayan football it's never changed, even though the players come and go, and they also have evolved, and most of their starters are now European-based players. It's still, when they put on that like light blue shirt, the black shorts and the black socks, it's like it's Uruguay, and they'll match up with anybody. They don't fear anybody, and now they have the killer instinct of Luis Suarez with his brand new knee, and he's very motivated to play, and I think that was his criticism, that he got this, he got his knee repaired to play for Uruguay. And you're pointing about Nico Lodero. He looked exceptional. He looked like a classic number 10 that was just, in the midfield, on the ball, finding space, very vertical, very attack oriented. And he scored at this point probably the goal of the tournament, just a beautiful goal in the box where he brought it down with his chest. I don't think the ball hit the ground. He might have like popped it up once with his left foot, then he volleyed it into the corner. Just a great performance overall. I mean, Ecuador looked like they had no business being on the same field with Uruguay. So I think Uruguay is going to get out of that group fairly easily. and they will be feared throughout the Copa America. There's no doubt.
I was excited to see Oscar Tabarez still managing Uruguay because, like he's, as you said, he's been there for decades. But I've correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought there were reports last summer after like when Uruguay were eliminated that he was going to have to step down due to health concerns. That he is still there. I'm assuming means good things and makes me very happy.
Yeah, I mean, he's a legend, and there were reports that he was going to step down, that they kind of underperformed, and maybe it was time for a change. But he's still there, and I think he's revered in that country, and obviously the players still play for him. He's the kind of manager that they will run through walls and run through fire for Oscar Tabarez, but also for just the shirt. They know what they're representing. Remember, it's like I'm sitting here doing this interview from Puerto Rico, and it's about the same size as Uruguay. It's insane that this country continues to produce the quality that they have, and they just kind of reboot and go out there and play their game. And they just kind of ask their opponents, like, are you down? We're going to face you. We're going to go at you. And they really put Ecuador away early. And I think that'll continue. I think they're going to be that team in this tournament that will play with the confidence of a team that's expected to win it.
You mentioned that Uruguay know what they're representing. They're a team that know what they're representing. I'm assuming that's the same with Chile, given that we keep thinking that each tournament is like the last hurrah for their golden generation. But here they are beating Japan 4-0 in their opener with a lot of the same faces. What are your expectations for Chile at this Copa America?
Man, I knew you were going to ask me this, and I actually spent more time reading about Chile and the match against Japan than any other kind of match in preparation for the interview. And it's funny because, it's their golden generation. They're still there. The one of the hottest seats in South America for their Colombian coach, Reinaldo Rueda, who's very well respected in South America. He was. I think when the open job after Peckerman left Colombia, he was one of the candidates, and I think he wanted that job. So he's well respected. He just hasn't really produced for Chile. And even in Chile, I don't think they put a lot of the blame on him. It's like one of those countries where the blame is placed almost solely on the players, on underperforming players, on the generation. Even though they won the back-to-back Copa Americas, it's like, is it time for them to go? So I think they have a lot to prove. They're kind of playing with that chip on their shoulder. But with Chile, you don't know what you're going to get. You really don't. Even with that great, generation that's still there with Alexis Sanchez and Vidal, Vargas, like they feel like they can probably play with anybody. But even against Japan, if you go back and kind of read what happened, the 4-0 scoreline was a bit deceiving, according to a lot of people, a lot of the papers in Santiago. Japan, which isn't the strongest Japanese team that we've ever seen, was right there. They're another Asian team that can cause a lot of problems. They're very fast. They're very technical. They're very organized. And it looks like they did. A lot of Chile's goals came from some nice, either like a counterattack or some, kind of opportunistic build-up play around the box. But they didn't just completely dominate Japan. And so Chile to me is a team that when I was looking at them, I'm like, I can see them advancing and causing some trouble. But you're not sure exactly what the mentality of this team game to game. And that is a absolute indictment on the players more so than Chilean football or their current manager or the federation. It's some of these players have been called out for not performing, and everyone knows that they can. So I think for Chile, it's going to be a game-to-game type of situation. Like how locked in are they? How motivated are they? And I mean, they look pretty motivated, obviously, with the 4-0 win. That's going to help them. But I think it's a wait and see with Chile always.
I can't say I'm entirely surprised by that summary of Chile because they have Alexis Sanchez, who comes out and scores a goal, gets an assist against Japan. Obviously did not necessarily do that for Manchester United regularly this season. Is he basically trolling United fans at this point? Is that kind of what this tournament's all about for him?
Probably. I mean, he needs a big tournament. He needs the confidence. He obviously is a player that's lacking confidence, and his move to Manchester United was anything short of a disaster. And so he's still very well respected in Chile. He's a player that is expected to do well. But it was funny because before Copa America, he was one of the guys that was kind of on the fringe of he was the outside looking in. A lot of managers want the players to be playing. But I think it was always going to be difficult to not include Alexis Sanchez in a Copa America, but you weren't sure which Sanchez you're going to get. Which Alexis are we getting? Is he going to be rusty? Is he going to be, the kind of the dangerous guy that probably never should have left Barcelona? Or is he the player that's kind of searching for his confidence, after not playing for Manchester United? And I think he looks like a guy that wants to prove everybody wrong. And sometimes maybe that's what Chile needs, after winning everything, but also underperforming at the same time, not qualifying for the 2018 World Cup. Maybe this is what they need when everyone is kind of pointing at them and like not expecting much. They can kind of surprise some people.
All right. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I did want to ask you, is there an argument to be made that losing Neymar is what Brazil needed? Because obviously he will not be participating in this competition, gets the injury before it kicks off. Brazil then go out, get their 3-0 win in the opener against Bolivia. I'm wondering what your expectations are for this Brazil team without Neymar. And do they kind of perform more as a unit without him?
I think it's, especially if you look at the first half against Bolivia, anyone that was like they're gonna be better without Neymar was probably eating their words and hiding behind their laptop, because they were bad. They just did not have any kind of creativity. There was no one on the pitch that when the ball was at their feet, you could feel the crowd get up, or even defenders kind of panic and backpedal. David Neres, the young player from Ajax, has taken on that role, and he was really brave. He was always going 1v1. He's a left-footed, kind of winger that's very technical and really can take anybody on. He showed that in the Champions League as well. But he's not Neymar. I think what Brazil might actually appreciate is not having the Neymar circus around the national team. That's much different from not having him, tactically, and being able to depend on a player of his quality and his caliber, really. But it's the kind of the distraction that is Neymar, the inevitable drama on the pitch, the injury that he'll always kind of pick up, and I'm putting in air quotes, an injury, that kind of can change a game, that can either put make an opponent feel like we've got him, we've got Neymar rolling around and his team is flustered because they want to defend him, or which is what happened, which in my opinion was their downfall in the 2014 World Cup. As soon as he was kind of kneed in the back and taken out against Colombia, and he couldn't play against Germany, it was as if he had passed away. It was insane. Like, they're holding up his jersey during the national anthem. It's like, what are we going to do without Neymar? And then the Germans were just smelled blood and completely destroyed them. So I think it might be a blessing, to your point, that he's not there, but I don't think it'll be tactical, because I think he's still too good of a player to just be like, hey, we don't need Neymar. But maybe the team grows without him, and new players step up, like I mentioned, Neres and Richarlison, the player from Everton who was given this opportunity and started ahead of Gabriel Jesus, and played well against Bolivia. And again, Brazil has everything on that bench to win this Copa America. They're at home. As soon as the fans show up and take less selfies and kind of cheer for Brazil, that was a critique coming out of Brazil, that the ticket prices are so high that the fans that are going are kind of the cool crowd, if you will, and not the real passionate national team supporters. So, but yeah, I think they're strong defensively. They have one of the best goalkeepers, obviously, in the world. Tite is a very good coach, and they're well coached. They just struggled against a Bolivia team that was going to defend with 10. And it wasn't until kind of a VAR type of penalty that opened up the floodgates, and then they started to dominate.
All right. But if Brazil struggle, if Argentina don't turn it around, then it's fair to assume that we maybe have one slightly less heralded team make a deep run. So my final question for you is there one kind of dark horse team that you think could make a deep run, and could it be Venezuela, so that I could feel slightly better about the USA's 3-0 destruction?
Possibly, yes. It could be Venezuela. I think Venezuela's issue is that they have the talent. It's one of their best generations ever. it's the mentality. They have a great coach too, by the way. I love Rafael Dudamel, but he is still he's pretty conservative as a manager, and I think they still need to jump that hurdle of like being the team that isn't expected to win, and maybe it's just expected to cause problems and kind of squeak by with the result, and being a team that's on the field and it's like, we're going to come at you. We have the strikers, we have the creative players, we have a phenomenal young goalkeeper, and I just don't see that yet. I think there's still that team that's like kind of playing to not lose. And so I don't know if they have enough. They don't score enough goals to kind of make a deep run in the tournament. And they're in Brazil's group. And so that's going to be tough for them to get out. Same with Peru. A lot of people would love to see Peru do well. And they have one of the most technical teams in South America, another excellent coach and a process and a project that's growing. But they sometimes struggle to get past opponents and score and put teams away. And so that's another team that would probably be a dark horse, but I'm not sure how they're going to do in that group. And so I think it look like the heavy hitters should go through. And I'm including Colombia, not because they are at Brazil or Argentina's level, but because they have the quality to get through and make a run. And aside from that, like it's not just a tournament full of excellent teams. There are a lot of teams, like I said, that are building, rebuilding, new managers, younger players. And so for me, it's kind of a toss-up. That's why I put Uruguay and Brazil automatic. They should get through. Colombia now should be expected to continue to play well. And then it's like, can you call Argentina a dark horse? I mean, maybe, considering that they lost their first game and they have an interim coach and no one is behind them in their own country. And so maybe they can kind of turn it around and start to, change the minds of the very critical Argentines.
Well, if they do, or if anybody else makes that run, or if anybody else crashes out, hopefully you will be able to come back on and talk to us about it. Maybe also talk to us a little bit about Mexico as the Gold Cup continues. But Felipe, one more time, if people want to read more of your stuff, follow you, how can they do so?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Felipe Carr. And then be sure to follow The Athletic Soccer at The Athletic SCCR. That's where you'll find all my stories. Like you mentioned, I'm still covering Atlanta United. Obviously, MLS is on a break, but that is still my beat. But all of the staff writers for The Athletic Soccer now, we're kind of just spreading our wings and covering MLS in general. So you'll find, hopefully I'll get more stories of those, just MLS stories. And yes, I'll be covering Mexico throughout the Gold Cup and featuring, some of their younger players and tactics around, what Tata Martino is doing, because it didn't take him long to establish an identity and a philosophy for El Tri.
There we go. Well, Felipe, safe travel home, safe trip to Colorado, and thank you to your family. Well, thank you to you, but also thank you to your family for giving you the time on vacation to come talk to me for a while.
My pleasure, Taylor, and shout out to Daryl. Tell him I said hello.
You gotta slice it.